it. Not this Sunday. We won't do it Sunday, but we will have absentee voting in person at the administration building this Saturday from 8 a.m. To 12. So we'll be open 4 hours to get those folks who can't make it during the week. The other thing is, again, reiterating to the voters out there, know your assigned polling place, your precinct. We have a lot of great tools on our website. The Secretary of State's office has some great tools on their website. Or you can call our office at 367-8080 and we'll tell you what your voting location is. Additionally, just prior to the election, between, I'd say, Friday and Monday, we'll be mailing out to each household with a registered voter a postcard that will tell those voters where they'll be voting on Election Day. So I want to close right now just by reminding everyone that we won't be here for this informational meeting next week or the City Council because next Tuesday is Election Day. April 12th, polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. With that, I'll take any of your questions.
Questions from the Council? Seeing none,
Okay.
Tom, you took away my thunder because that was my question. And could you repeat again, if someone does not know where their polling place is, how can they find out?
They can call us at 367-8080. They could go online, www.siouxfalls.org. There's a link to the 2016 election right on the home page. We'll send a postcard out between Friday and Monday telling them where they can vote. So a lot of places for folks to figure it out, but if all else fails, call 367-8080 and we'll let you know.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Next is City Council open discussion. Any items for open discussion? I see none, so we will move forward with our presentation today. City Administration Building Update. We'll have we'll have Tracy Turback start off today.
Good afternoon, councilors. Tracy Turback with the Finance Office, and thank you for having us here today. With me today, Sue Quanbeck-Etten is here. She's certainly been leading a big part of this project. We also have a number of the project team here. In addition to that, project management team is here. We have representatives from Henry Carlson as well as Coke Hazard and some of the other relevant city staff as well. You might recall that on the 1st of March, we had first reading of the bond ordinance that would provide the funding for this project. And at that time, the second reading was scheduled for April 5th, which is today. So on your agenda tonight is the second reading and adoption of the bond ordinance for this project. This represents the culmination, really, of a year of hand-in-hand work with the City Council. Particularly Councilor Rolfing, Councilor Anderson, and Councilor Kiley have been working and committed a considerable amount of time on this project, meeting with the project team and moving this project forward. So we certainly thank you folks for that. In addition, of course, we've had lots of meetings, lots of updates, lots of Q&A on this project, and we'll provide you with some additional information, additional thoughts today. And looking forward to the second reading of the bond ordinance tonight. But we're very much at the point where tonight it's time to make a decision and bring this project to the forefront. We have heard a number of questions since the first reading and throughout the past year on this project, questions and concerns in some cases. So I do want to try to recap and hit the highlights on those as much as we can in a brief presentation. We have heard that some feel that this project is being rushed. Certainly, from our position, nothing could be further from reality. There really has been 10 years of due diligence on this project. It goes back to 2007 when there was a formal space needs assessment that was done, another space needs assessment in 2012 that occurred. As some of you folks I'm sure know, the proposed location for this building was purchased by the city back in 2007. So that with the potential or identified use at that time of a future location for a city building. We had several years of research that went into the due diligence phase of this project, identifying alternatives. We looked at many possible alternatives, possible options. We looked, first of all, in-house at City Hall. and over the past several years have been maximizing the use of the space in City Hall. I think most of you are aware that ground floor was renovated in 2014, really to try to squeeze every last square foot out of that level that we could. Last year, the second floor of City Hall was renovated. We were actually able to capture about 500 additional square feet to make it usable. It was corridor space on the second floor, and it's now being utilized as occupied space for city staff. And so we've really squeezed as many square feet out of that building as we can, but we still find ourselves in a position where this building, Carnegie Building, City Hall Building, and the Annex Building are all at capacity. We've had a number of presentations before the council, as you folks know, and in fact, this particular project and the recommended solution started a year ago. It was in April of 2015 when we presented to the council the recommended solution for the long-term space needs of this city. And since that time, we've had a number of updates, a number of meetings and presentations to the council. Early on, we engaged Minnehaha County to explore opportunities for collaboration. And again, we've more recently re-engaged with the county and had more discussions and talks with some of the county officials. And it was in following the schematic design process that took place over the winter. In February, we presented a building design and a project budget to the council leading up to the first reading of the bond ordinance then in March. So this has been a very methodical, a very deliberate process that has brought us to where we are tonight on this project. We've also heard that some don't particularly like the location. From our perspective as a project team, we really believe, and I sincerely believe, that we could look for another 50 years and we would never find a better location than the location that's being recommended. And it was interesting that the project team, independent of the history of that particular site, really came to the conclusion that that was the ideal location north of the parking ramp on Dakota Avenue. And it was fascinating to me to recently learn that in 2007, when the City Council authorized purchasing that land, that was the intended use at that time, that someday that property would get used for a city services building similar to what we're proposing today. So it certainly isn't just the current project team that thinks that's the ideal location. That's really was the intention of the City Council from nearly 10 years ago. The building will connect to the existing city parking ramp, which would be immediately to the south of this building. That certainly is a strong feature of this particular site and will allow us to utilize that parking ramp in conjunction with the building. It builds on the existing government campus, whether this has been by design or just by coincidence. We certainly have here in downtown Sioux Falls developed a pretty extensive government campus, starting here at the Carnegie, moving north to City Hall, the Annex, the main library branch, the parking ramp, this new building, and then certainly the county facilities a little bit further to the north has created really an ideal example of a government campus, and this project would simply be an extension of that. One of the things that has maybe gotten lost a little bit in the discussion on this project is the goal of improving the service to the people that we serve here in Sioux Falls. The centralized location of this site will certainly open up some opportunities for improved customer service, to have it centralized, for the city to have fewer footprints on the ground in terms of our locations for our staff, rather than more locations. And last but not least, I think the adjacency with Van Epps Park really provides some additional strong features for this particular site. The building will benefit by being next to Van Epps Park, and in turn, I think Van Epps Park will benefit greatly from being adjacent to this building. So we believe the two tie in beautifully together. Prudent use of tax dollars, as it should be, is always a focus on any project, always a concern, and it's certainly an important feature in our thoughts and recommendation for this particular solution. When it comes to providing building space from which the city services can be provided to the community, we really have two fundamental options. We can rent or we can own. And I believe we've demonstrated, and I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever, that owning will cost less than leasing. We've been leasing some space since 2013. As you know, we essentially hit capacity and are in a reactionary mode at this point in terms of meeting the city's space needs. It's been suggested that perhaps the city should take the approach, more of an incremental approach, and lease a little more space, and then when we need more, we'll lease a little more, and then when we need more, we'll lease a little more. Well, there are many, many downsides to that approach, and I certainly would never advocate something like that. It will, in the long run, cost the taxpayers more money. In fact, many millions of dollars more over the long term. And we've used the example of City Hall. If 85 years ago, or however long ago it was, the city first moved in there, if we had started paying rent and had been paying rent for the last 85 years, certainly would have been much more expensive for the taxpayers. The other downside of that incremental approach, or more of a Band-Aid approach to it, is that it will fracture the city teams into more and more locations, and so that rather than having fewer locations and more efficient customer service, we'll have more locations and less efficient customer service, and in that arrangement the taxpayers lose again. This really does follow through on the vision that was demonstrated when the land was purchased back in 2007. I think is an opportunity to capitalize on that investment. That's certainly a critical feature of this. The building as presented, as designed, certainly is the right size for today and really provides again, a long-term solution for the city. It will allow the city to grow along with as the community and the population grows, and we've estimated, based on historical growth patterns, that this particular site, this building, and the expandability that it offers will meet the needs of the city for as much as 50 years. And certainly one important aspect of the prudent use of the tax dollars is the great interest rates that are available to us today. When we sell bonds, we will get an outstanding interest rate. City has a great credit rating, and interest rate markets are very favorable right now. Again, I can't stress enough that renting long-term really makes no sense for the city whatsoever. And this recommended project, this recommended solution, is a very long-term solution to what has now been a rather long-standing problem for the city. As I mentioned, the project team did engage the county commission, county officials fairly early on in this discussion, about a year ago. And at that time, the county expressed that they do have some significant challenges of their own, particularly related to jail space, and that was really their primary priority at that time, and so they stepped away from this project to, and appropriately so, I think, to focus on trying to solve their jail space needs. Now, recently, there has been some additional renewed interest, I might say, in discussing opportunities for collaboration with the county. And we've had a number of discussions with some of you folks on that particular topic, and we have engaged in some discussions with some of the county officials as well. And some of the things that we've learned, again, most recently, first of all, the county certainly doesn't want to stand in the way of the city making progress. They've made that very clear. They are, however, updating their own space needs. They're in the process of assessing what their future space needs will be. And from their perspective, that's an important piece of the puzzle that they're trying to put together. And in addition, they're looking at a jail study and anticipate some results and developing a firmer direction on where they're going to go with their jail needs here in the relatively near future. So they're currently working to identify those solutions to their jail space needs and their building space needs. And again, we understand that they do expect to have some answers in the very near future as to what may potentially be some viable solutions for them. They've indicated that based on the reports that they're expecting back this summer, that if they do identify some viable opportunities for them to meet their needs, that they would expect that to be addressed in their 2017 budget. And their budget cycle, just like the city's, is essentially their budget has to be established by the 1st of October. So if we're going to discuss a potential for some additional time for discussions and collaboration opportunities, they've indicated that September and October will, in fact, give them that time frame, will give them the time that they need for their future plans to become clearer. So to review some of the concerns that we've addressed, we feel like we've addressed thoroughly and listened to the due diligence. We've had really a decade of due diligence, as I mentioned, a lot of activity, a lot of research, an evaluation of lots and lots of different sites and different opportunities. The City Council's intended location, I mean, that has been the intended location since 2007. That was, from my perspective, kind of reassuring that to know that that has been for quite a number of years the intended location for a facility. Building now is important. We've talked about this before, and certainly it's no surprise that costs are going up. It will cost more to build in the future than it does today, and in a little while I'll ask Jerry Fromm from Henry Carlson to come up and talk to you a little bit about that so you can hear it straight from him in terms of the impacts of waiting and what that will do to construction costs. Certainly delaying or taking more time on the project presents some risks and costs relative to the borrowing rates that we might see as well. And that's important that you folks are aware of that. I do believe that the project is very affordable to the city. I think we've demonstrated that in terms of the bond repayment plan that we've put together and that you have seen presented to you before. And again, I'll say it one more time, long-term renting is not the answer for the city. It will waste taxpayers' dollar over the long term and is simply a poor decision for the county to utilize that as a long-term strategy. The project, as designed, I mentioned, is very expandable. The intention is to have a third floor that would be a shell that would be available to be finished out and occupied in really very short order when the need arises. The option of adding a fourth floor, the building will be built so that it can accommodate a fourth floor, and then there will be room on the existing site to expand those 4 floors then to the north. So there are a number of opportunities to expand, and the flexibility of the building is really quite striking. I think you'll see there are very few interior walls in the design so that it can be very flexible going forward, and that's I think just critical for the long-term utility of this particular facility. So the building will be ready if the county needs space. They're building and moving forward with this project does not close the door on future county collaboration. If they have a need that we can fulfill with this building, that's certainly a very, very viable option that would be available to us in the future. So tonight, as I said, we'll have a second reading of the bond ordinance. And in reflecting on that, and I know we've had some rather lively conversations with some of you folks in terms of reconciling that decision with the desire to have more discussion, more time for discussion and potential collaboration with the county. We believe we've identified An ideal solution for this city council would be to approve the bond ordinance tonight. We've listened to those concerns about additional time, and so we would support waiting on the sale of the bonds until October. So this solution, in effect, would provide an opportunity for this council, you 8 folks, to vote on this project. You are the most well-informed, most educated group of elected officials we have on this project. You know the history, you know the long-term need, you know what's happened in the past to address the need, the work that's been done, and you're certainly familiar with this project. At the same time, by waiting on the sale of the bonds until October, it would allow that additional time for discussion with county officials. I know some of you feel that that's a very critical, important idea at this time, is to re-engage the county, and frankly, approving the bond ordinance tonight with that understanding that the sale of the bonds would wait until October would not only put us in a position where we can keep the project on budget, but it allows that if a bigger, better solution, whatever that might be, whatever might come out of those discussions with the county, if that does not emerge in those 6 months, this project would be in a position where we can move ahead then without further delay and further increases in cost. And so it's really critical, we believe, and would ask for you folks to demonstrate your leadership on this project and really consider this solution as really a win-win all the way around, that it puts you folks in the driver's seat in deciding on the project, but also allows that extra time for collaboration that a number of desire. So the project is really in your folks' hands. I would urge you to think about the long term, think about this as a long-term solution. And one thing that sometimes has gotten lost in the discussion, I think, I would urge you to think about the people who make up the city team. And in a little while, I'll have Mark Cotter come up, and he can relate a little bit about what that means from his perspective and the folks that work for him as someone who would occupy this facility, someone who manages the team that is located in some of the less desirable space that we have. But at this time, I'd like to have Jerry Fromm from Henry Carlson address you folks and really to reinforce the point about the construction costs and our ability, should we be in a position to move forward in October, that we believe we can continue to live within the budget that we've presented to you folks without any alterations. We also have representatives from Cook Hazard here that I'd ask when Jerry is finished to address you folks as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Jerry Fromm, President of Henry Carlson Company. I was asked by the administration to talk a little bit about what a October start date would do to our construction schedule, and then also potential cost increase. The last time I spoke to the group, we talked about a 3% inflation cost as kind of a standard in the construction industry. So obviously any delay in the project runs the risk of additional cost to the project. We find ourselves in a situation where if we need to approve the bond sale tonight, we're basically locked into that total project cost. And we were asked to analyze the risk. And so updating our schedule with an October restart date would mean that we would hit the bid market in the December-January timeframe. That actually is a very good time to bid a construction project. A lot of contractors are wrapping projects up from the previous year, and they're looking ahead to the next year on how they might keep their crews busy throughout the upcoming year. So we feel that the timing, putting the project out to bid in a December-January timeframe, actually would offset some of that potential risk that we would see with the typical 3% inflation. So at this point, what I'm here to say is Henry Carlson Company would be comfortable with the budget we've established and resuming the design and bidding process in October with the hopes that we would hit the market in December, January. Any delay further than that would put us outside of our comfort zone, and we would want the right to go back and take a look at the budget again and update our budgets with the current market conditions in our Sioux Falls market. Any questions on?
Any questions from the council on, or do we want to finish? We'll just finish off
Okay.
the presentation.
I'll let Jeff Hazard speak on the design of the project then.
Jeff Hazard, Koch Hazard Architects. Tracy did a very thorough job covering the facts about this project, but I'd like to touch on maybe just 5 key points. One, location. You know, the site's really very well located along the citizen service corridor, right between City Hall and the county campus. It has room for horizontal expansion, and it offers a great opportunity for sort of synergies between the building and adjacent Van Epps Park to create some really usable and accessible green space for the downtown area. Expandability, number 2. The building has room to expand onto a 3rd floor, which would begin as a shell. So there's room for roughly 80 staff on a floor that would initially be unoccupied. It also is designed to accommodate a 4th level, which would add space for another 80 to 100 staff. And there's room to expand the building to the north. The building's flexible. Staff areas are open and easily reconfigured to accommodate changing needs and governmental relationships. The building offers an opportunity to enhance public service, has convenient parking, is fully accessible, has welcoming entrance and lobby spaces, and very functional layout on the interior to accommodate meetings between the public and staff. And it'll be a performance-enhancing environment for staff. It'll offer ample opportunities for collaboration, convenient access to support areas, natural light, access to the exterior, all things that have been shown by research to enhance productivity among employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Good afternoon, City Council. Mark Cotter with the Office of Public Works. We'd just like to share a few points from Public Works perspective. We would be moving Public Works Administration, Engineering, and Utility Billing into this space. And so really what this means, what this project means for us is many of you guys know that we're very fractured. We're in 6 different locations. This would allow us to essentially come together and just work at a much higher level. The project provides good, modern, long-term space plan for those 3 respective teams. With your support of this project, our plan would be to move 77 people into the building initially and ultimately have room to grow. When we speak just to the utility billing office, that's today located over by the event center. They manage the utility bills for 53,000 customers. This would provide us a much better security approach, being on the centralized campus, and also much easier for our customers to find us. It's also with that staff, that's one of our key staff teams that is fractured. They only function on their own. They don't have the ability to collaborate with other staff. This location along this corridor, as many have mentioned, is easy to find. It's good parking. I think, just having Dakota Avenue as this really branded city and county corridor speaks volumes. We see so many people come into City Hall each day asking where something is, and anytime you can actually keep it all on the same campus speaks volumes. This plan brings Public Works and Parks and Rec teams together in one location. Our 2 teams work a lot together. We are responsible for the capital plan, and just having that connection with with parks on maintenance and capital planning is critical. We talked about growth, but really this plan is set up to be very flexible. The intention of how the architects and the constructor have laid this building out is going to really set this up to be good, flexible, modern workspace for some time into the future. I think we can all appreciate good, modern space. I mean, I think at any time throughout careers you've worked in substandard space, this team, speaking for Public Works, they're ready for good, modern space to do the work of our customers. You know, one of the perspectives of just managing traffic, we've got over 260 signalized intersections in the city. We don't have a modern traffic control room. This building will provide us a good modern traffic control room. When we have big events, you know, we'll have teams that'll work flex hours to actually go in, and we've put the fiber in the ground. We can operate these signals, but we need a good modern traffic control room. This does it. Last summer when we had the torrential rains that came down, you know, in many cases, if we don't have a good modern room to pull up all of our screens of our water and wastewater assets, we're in one or two offices trying to look at critical pieces of infrastructure and then also talking to the plants. This plan gives us that modern control room along with that traffic control room, and we're looking forward to that. The current arrangement in City Hall gives us no room for growth, and you know, just looking at ratios, if you've been up to engineering where we currently have engineering, typically if you're going to lay out space, you try to achieve about 220 square feet per person. Engineering's at about 135. It's tight. And so this new plan gives us some of those average square foot per employee, but also gives us some good growth to go forward. And just in closing, our team has spent a great deal of time looking at this plan, working with the project team, the architects, and the constructor, and look forward to having good modern space and would ask for your support. Thank you.
Okay, I believe that is the end of the presentation.
That is our presentation, so we'll certainly entertain whatever questions you folks have.
Questions from the council? Councilman Jameson.
Tracy, if I could, a couple questions for you, and then Sue, a couple questions for you. Hey, that almost rhymes. Questions for you. Tracy, could you outline the project funding for this building, kind of the timeline of when money was appropriated for this project, how much, and the CIP projects, and the CIP plan? Could you just, I know it's not in your presentation here, but if you could walk us through that.
Yeah, of course, the funding for this project would be provided by the sale of the bonds. That's where the money would come from to pay for the project costs. And in addition to authorizing the sale of the bonds, the ordinance would give your authorization to appropriate and spend those dollars on this project. So that's, for the project, that's where the funds would come from.
How about to this point? I guess a timeline of when we started funding this project to be designed and built, that part.
Yeah, I don't recall exactly how much initially was. There was a relatively small amount of money put in the budget to engage some of the architectural and pre-construction services. I think in the current 2016 budget, we had appropriated $250,000.
In the current CIP, 250.
In the 2016 budget.
16.
There was some money. Of course, a lot of the work that's been done to date was done in 2015. That came from an initial appropriation in the 2015 budget.
For the admin building.
For a building project, right?
When you say a building project, you mean just kind of to be determined?
Well, we did not have a specific solution in mind. This is the outcome of that effort. This recommended project.
Okay, and thank you. And as well as the 1.3, I think it was the purchase price for this land. Is that what it was, 1.3?
I wasn't here in 2007. I guess I don't know what the purchase price was.
The mayor brought it up during the State of the City address just last Thursday. I thought it was 1.3, but maybe it's 2 million. And I guess I'm trying to figure out how would you incorporate that into this project? Is it because it was purchased a long time ago? I assume it was purchased and then given to public parking. They've been generating revenue from it. Will we have to kind of buy it from them, or how does that transaction work?
I don't anticipate doing that. No. To my knowledge, the parking system does not have an investment in that property, so.
Okay. And then, but in fairness, though, it would be realistic to think that the purchase of that land, even though we own it today, still needs to be included in the project.
Well, the building's got to be built somewhere. That's where we're recommending the building be built.
I get that, but
It's paid for, so there's, I mean, I'm not sure I follow your
sure,
line
the
of thought
city's
here.
already spent $2 million to purchase the land, frankly.
But my understanding was that the purchase included the site or the property we're proposing this building to go on, but I believe it also included the site of the parking ramp.
That could be.
So we've utilized some of that property already for the parking ramp.
Well, I was just curious how you were working that, if you were including that in the overall cost, if there was any consideration for the fact that we had purchased the land, but apparently you're kind of offsetting it for the ramp, and that may be fair. Thank you. A couple of questions for Sue, if I could. Sue, on the whole concept of collaborating with the county, I get that you guys are trying to catch up. And actually the council and the county have been collaborating probably as much as they could possibly do it over the last few years, trying to figure out new ways to do it. We've met in a way that's never been done before. And I appreciate that you guys are trying to get onto that train. What I'm afraid of is that in this project, you have already left the station on the train and you're asking the county to kind of jump on as we're going. That's how I feel, but I appreciate the fact that at least that you're trying to get them on. I'm just thinking that you're a little too far down the tracks for them to jump on. So I want to ask about the needs. Back in one of the slides, it states that the county is assessing their space needs. The only two space needs that I know of that they're doing are the highway department and the jail. They're not doing any administration needs assessment. Do you believe that to be true?
No, when we met with them recently, they mentioned to us that they had engaged the services of a local architectural firm and that they were doing a space needs study looking at the public safety building.
Right, the public safety building is different than the administration building that they have.
Correct, correct.
So, and given that, if indeed they do start a study on their administrative building, and that lower floor, the first floor of that building is tremendously busy, very much has to be on the first floor, all the activity, people coming in there. If along this they jump on our train and say, yeah, we need about 10,000 square feet on the first floor because all of that walk-in traffic that we have, kind of like the city has with their building department, how would you reconfigure our plans to kind of make them fit?
Well, we'd certainly have to sit down and re-engage in terms of discussions of what divisions or departments they would expect to be in our building, how those areas function, and how our areas function that we plan to have in the building as well. So we'd have to get to those detailed conversations.
Okay, one last question.
One last.
This one's a little loaded, so hang on. Would you be opposed to entering into an agreement with the county and as representing the city and authorizing a joint needs assessment? So we enter a room as equals with the county and the city to address their needs, our needs, and find ways that we can collaborate. We would appoint joint members from the county and from the city to participate in the release of the RFP and walk that process through its entirety without any preconceived building in mind. But would you be opposed to that process?
Well, like you said, that's a loaded question. It's not one that's been posed before, to me anyway. I'd say that at this point, we have come so far with our plan for a new building for city staff that we would like to continue down that path with the notion that certainly the space is flexible, we would have room to spare, and would love to continue those collaboration discussions with the county.
Thank you.
Councilor Erickson.
So you can stay. I just have a, since you're there. Is all the available space at City Hall right now, is that currently being utilized?
It is.
Even the
yes.
main floor?
There's a small area, about 1,500 square feet in the northwest corner of first floor that we plan to renovate. It has a lot of hallways and a lot of walls that we want to demo, just as we did on ground floor and second floor. So we have a small amount of money set aside in this year's budget to study that further. And our tentative plan is that we would renovate that space, maybe this year, maybe going into next year, depending on the costs associated with that. And perhaps we could relocate human relations to that corner. Like I said, it's not a very big corner. There are several pillars there, but that's why we want to try to maximize that space just as we have throughout the other areas of City Hall. But other than that, yes, we are totally maxed out in our space, and that includes, of course, the people in the basement that we'd prefer not be in the basement.
Right, but currently, though, Human Relations is not located in that building.
Correct. They are in leased space at the moment.
So, I mean, there's certainly options to move the people in the basement to that corner if they needed.
There's not enough space for that.
What's the number of employees in the basement that need to be relocated?
There's generally 8, I believe, but they do have seasonal employees, some interns in the summer, for example, so I think they need room for 12.
And Human Relations has how many employees?
I believe they have Colleen Moran, who's the attorney, and 2 other staff that would be moving into that space. And then potentially Jamie, who does the licensing, as part of the attorneys group as well, would become part of that space with them. So they'd have some overlap for coverage there at the reception area.
Okay, I have a couple questions for Tracy, if I can. Couple questions, Tracy. In regards to kind of piggybacking off the land purchase, if that was purchased by parking, and parking is an enterprise fund, how does that help me understand that?
To my knowledge, it was not purchased by parking.
Wasn't purchased by, okay, thank you. I just
could be
wasn't.
wrong about that, but that's what I've been told.
And I don't know either. That's why I was just trying to understand that if it was and how that plays in. My other question is are we obligated to approve the bonds due to the money spent already?
There's no obligation to adopt the ordinance other than just prudent management of the city and looking out for the future of the community. I mean, that's the obligation I think that you folks have. Is there another question? Because I want to respond a little bit more to what Councilor Jameson's question was.
No, I do have a question for Henry Carlson, though.
Okay.
You want to respond to however
Yeah,
you
I
want
just
to do
wanted
it,
to
Chair.
add, if
However
you
you
don't
wanna do
mind,
Please,
Mr. Chair.
go ahead.
Yeah, we did have conversations, as I mentioned recently, with the county officials, and at no time did they ever indicate they have any intention or desire to abandon their administration building. They have, from what I gathered, every intention of staying there and utilizing that space. Furthermore, they indicated that one possible, maybe even likely outcome of the study that they're undergoing today would be that they may learn that they have adequate space today, that they don't have a need for additional space. Outside of their jail solution, they I think have hopes that their jail solution is going to be something that is much more manageable than what has been discussed in the past, but they have no indication or indicated no intentions of doing anything but continuing to occupy that administrative office building. So to think that they might need to be looking for space for those other offices, I think is probably not accurate. Thank you.
One more, Tracy, don't go far. Can I ask Tracy another question? I see on the first slide the 10 years, formal space needs assessments in 2007, 2012. Were there any other space needs assessments done after that time frame? In the last
2012.
None after that, though.
Not since we started the engagement with Cook Hazard.
So there wasn't any done in 2014?
2014? Well,
Base needs
oh, I don't believe we had a study done. No.
an assessment?
Well, I would say, I mean, we didn't utilize a consultant or a third party to do any additional formal studies for us, but certainly we have continued to have conversations internally with city staff, looking at space needs, in particular with the Public Works team.
TSP wasn't, oh,
Can we continue along with our questions, Counselor?
yeah,
You had
sorry.
another person you wanted to?
Yeah, I just had a quick question to Henry Carlson. How does the schedule impact, how does the schedule of this impact the completion date?
With the October,
Based on what happens if,
okay,
with the October of what's being proposed?
okay. Assuming that design would resume in October, we would have a final completion date of about June 1st, 2018. And the completion date that we were proposing prior was December of 2017.
Not April of 2018? I saw in a contract April of 2018 was mentioned
As
as a completion date.
Yeah, when we, that may have been in the RFP at the date, at the schedules that we had been working off of and building our cost models off of had a completion date of December 2017.
So then when would shovels go on the ground?
Under the October scenario, we would be ready as soon as February 2017, but we would need to wait and see if that made sense. Doing demolition work and earthwork in February could be cost prohibitive, so I think we'd want to wait and see what type of winter we were having before we decided if we were actually going to start in February or if we would wait till later in March when we may have the chance of frost being out of the ground.
Counselor Karski.
Thank you, Council Chair. Question for Mark Otter, if I could, Mark. Mark, why is it important to you and your staff to be downtown? What's the proximity with City Hall? How is that important to what you do?
Well, a couple things. You know, we do a lot just with planning and building services, has some similar clients as we do. Normally they start to work with planning and then they can migrate to Public Works as they go through annexation, preliminary plan, and then it starts to switch over to planning the subdivision, planning the infrastructure. And so just being a block apart would be ideal.
Okay, so for convenience for...
Convenience for just as, for a customer knowing that they can start at City Hall, but then just a block away, then they can move into the Public Works elements. And then just the various meetings that Mike Cooper's teams and our teams have consistently to be a block apart, you know, just to make that efficient.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another question. I'm not too sure who can answer this. I have a couple, if you don't mind. Sure. What is the cost to build this building on a per square foot basis, and how do you come up to that number? Who can help me with that?
I have the construction cost per square foot, and the cost to build the building, construction cost is $18.4 million, and the total square footage of the building is 79,034 square feet. So that equates to $233 per square foot. To get the total project cost, you would do the same math with $21.9 million, and I don't have that in front of me at the moment.
So the 79,000, that includes underground parking.
That
too,
includes
correct?
it includes underground parking, first floor, second floor, and the shell space. That would be third floor. So we would build the third floor structure. We would put just enough heating and cooling in there to keep it 50, 60 degrees and adequate lighting. And that would be it for finishes in that third floor shell space.
Okay. One other question thank you, regarding parking. Two potential scenarios happening within a few blocks of each other downtown. One is the county starts building a jail and they lose 200 plus parking spots. I think the number is 220. I don't know how many parking spots we have on this spot, but I'm imagining it's probably close to 100, right in that number, okay? So if we start building and they're building, we got equipment staging and so on and so forth, we lose 300 parking spots right where there's a prime need for them. What accommodations have been made for the loss of 300 parking spots downtown over a 12 to 20 month period?
I'm not sure I can give you a complete answer to that, Counselor. I don't know what accommodations the county might be thinking about relative to their parking needs. I do know that the surface lot that is the proposed site for this building is the utilization of that is very limited. So although there may be 100 spaces there, I think the occupancy there has been very, very light, according to our parking team. So it's not as if you're going to have to relocate 100 parkers somewhere else because the lot is full every day. So that's certainly part of it.
But the county spot is full. That one is used adequately.
And I don't know that, they don't have the answer on their jail solution just yet, and that's something they are hoping to have this summer. Some of the potential, the range of potential possibilities were pretty drastic, I think, from building something that's really much smaller than what has been contemplated to this point to maybe as large as what you've considered.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Staggers.
Let's see. Sue? Yeah, we've been talking about the need for more space for city employees and city customers and things like that. But at the same time that we're talking about that, we're wanting to go ahead and bring the county in, which would naturally take away significant amount of space, I would think. So at this time, do we have any rough figures on how much space the county would take if they joined us?
Well, we don't, other than we have talked to them about the building being flexible. As it stands right now, we intend to occupy first and second floor with growth space included. So from day one, we wouldn't be fully at full capacity for floors 1 and 2. The third floor shell potentially could be built out at any time. So this fall or perhaps even next spring, if the county were to decide that, yes, they wanted space on that third floor, we would enter into discussions with them at that point in terms of how that arrangement would take place. But 20,000 square feet on that third floor could accommodate additional 80 employees. So that is significant. And then, of course, we'll have the footings and foundations in place for fourth floor, which Jeff mentioned would even accommodate more than 80 employees because it wouldn't have that open atrium area on the fourth floor. So maybe even 100 employees could go on that fourth floor. So we have plenty of expansion possibilities.
Do we have any plans for the county to help pay for some of this?
Well, no, we haven't specifically talked about that. As you know, though, we do share space today. One of our city buildings is the law enforcement center, and county occupies about 15% of the law enforcement center with their sheriff's office. That's been a very collaborative process. They've been there since the building was built. They do pay for a percentage of operating expense in that building. And it works very well. Likewise, the Health and Human Services and Health Department, they're sharing a space in the county building. So I'm sure that we could come to an agreeable arrangement likewise in this new building.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from the council? Councilor Karski.
I don't know who this is addressed to, but and maybe it's rhetorical, but if somebody wants to answer it, I welcome it. I asked cost per square foot, and it's $233 a square foot based on 79,000 square foot footprint of our building. But if you really use the 18.4 million and figure the usable office square footage, it's more like $462 a square foot. There's 40,000 square feet of office space available, two buildings right next door to each other for $75 a square foot. Why is it such a better solution to spend $462 a square foot versus $75 a square foot?
I knew I shouldn't have sat in the first row, I guess. I got to jump up and try to answer your question. First of all, I'm not sure I accept the premise of your math. I think the industry has a pretty well established method of calculating per square foot cost. So you might be playing just a little bit fast and loose, Counselor, with the per square foot
Tracy,
calculations.
I'm basing it on the total office building improvements and everything.
I would defer to the experts on that. I'm not an expert on that. But I did hear what he said a moment ago, and I certainly believe that to be accurate. In terms of the square footage of buildings that are for sale, depending on where you are, the convenience of it, I know some of those that you and I have discussed in the past would certainly do nothing to enhance customer service. It would further fragment city teams on the outskirts of the community, certainly far outside the core, this government campus that we have established here in downtown Sioux Falls. So if it was about minimizing the space cost and it was only about space, that might be a more viable option to consider. But it is about much more than just space. Well, that's certainly a primary objective here, is to position the city so that we can long-term meet the needs of a growing community. It is much more than that. It is about customer service, providing convenient access to having an efficient operation. If we've got a dozen locations scattered all throughout town, how efficient is that going to be in terms of collaborating among teams, delivering IT services to all those different locations, delivering the mail, interoffice mail you start to think about the inefficiencies of locating city operations scattered all throughout the town, and your cost savings will evaporate in a real hurry, I believe. Thank you.
If I could, I'd like to talk a little bit about the cost per square foot. It's not quite as simple. The first and second floor are the relatively inexpensive floors. That total project cost does include the foundation of the building, all the site work that has to happen to go along with it, the street work, the park is included in that cost, as well as foundations that are sized for the third floor and potentially the fourth floor. So I do agree with the point you're making, but the numbers are a bit skewed. So if we were looking to build only a two-story building without underground parking, the cost per square foot would be much less.
And I appreciate that, thank you. I mean, we're talking about 40,000 square feet of office space that's needed for the next 20 years, plus the potential for collaboration with the county, as has been discussed extensively. We're getting 40,000 square feet of usable office space here. That's what we're looking for. We can spend 18 million or we can spend 3 million, 2.9 million. That's the numbers I'm looking at. And you can calculate them how you want. When we buy a building, it comes with the parking lot, it comes with the foundation, it comes with the roof, it comes as a complete building and it's usable. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Councilor Kiley.
It's really kind of hard to know where to begin with this, because we've been discussing it for over a year already, and we're rehashing some of the same topics over and over again. Yet there's a number of new things that continually to come up and be presented as roadblocks, which leads this counselor to question just where are we really going with this? I mean, this is a project that I firmly believe is needed for the city of Sioux Falls, for the citizens of Sioux Falls, and for no other reason. We have increased in size since 2000, the equivalent of the cities of Aberdeen and Watertown, and that's the 2016 population of Aberdeen and Watertown, not the 2000. With that type of continued growth, a lot of the things that are being kicked around here are just simply temporary little stopgap measures, and we're going to still find, or future councils, and we've also heard about the responsibility for future councils. Well, I, for one, take my job very seriously as a city councilor, and I have the greatest amount of respect for my counterparts at the county level. And I feel that it's been unfortunate that they have been kind of thrown in the middle of a situation that I question whether they really want to be there and placed in that position. We've heard from them. I don't agree that the train has left the station or that they were never given the opportunity to get on the train, because it's been demonstrated time and time again that they have. And it's demonstrated again here this afternoon that we're willing to delay this in a method that allows the county to come on board in October when they have determined their project date, the same as we'll have to determine our budget cycle as well, too. The county has to do the same thing. So we're accommodating that, and so they have that opportunity, which also gives this council the opportunity to vote on a project that we have been studying for over a year versus delaying it further and enforcing this onto other councils. Every decision we make, whether it's to build a new administration building or whether it's to pass ordinances regarding right-of-ways, has an impact on future councils. Every single decision we make. So I, as a city councilor, I accept the responsibility to do what's right for the city of Sioux Falls. And I feel for the county and for their needs. But thus far, if somebody has said that they can definitely participate, and this is a great chance that we're going to participate, please let me know, because I haven't heard that. I've heard a lot of ifs, or if this study comes through, and I don't want to put them in that position. I feel bad even talking about it right now because it puts them in a position where they're kind of stuck in the middle here. But we have a responsibility as city councilors to do what is right for the city of Sioux Falls and for the citizens so that we can continue to provide the services that they deserve, that they expect, and to put our employees in a position to provide those services, to have people working in areas that we have nicknamed the swamp, and especially in this competitive climate where it's so easy to find other well-paying positions. I really do truly believe that now is the time to act. Further delay is just going to cost millions of dollars. We've already mentioned it. With 3% inflationary rates, a 5-year delay could cost as much as $3.5 million. 10-year rate delay could cost $7.5. 20 years, 17.7. Where would we be if the administration back in the 1930s had decided, let's just continue to lease buildings and let's not build City Hall? And look at how it has served us over that time. This is a building that's going to continue to serve the needs of the citizens. And it is about customer service. So I would urge my fellow councilors to please keep an open mind on this. We have listened, and we're trying to compromise and reach, I guess, a point where it's going to work out well for the city, for the county, and give the county the opportunity, and also at the same time provide this city council the opportunity to vote on this project.
Councilor Jamison.
Well, a couple items that I think have been maybe reiterated and maybe turned into rhetoric in this whole process. First off, the swamp. The swamp is a reference to the TV show MASH. It's not any reference to any water hanging around in the slush pond of the basement. Anybody who would ask anybody, and maybe I just have a little more history, so maybe it's not fair, but if you ask where that word comes from, it's a reference to the TV show MASH. Don't let it be used as a some lousy place to work. In fact, I bet if you asked those guys if they'd be willing to trade places with the people on the second floor, they'd tell you no. They like it where they're at. It's another part. There's no argument that this train left the station on the city's timeline, the city's schedule, the city's determination. It has not been from the beginning a joint cooperative agreement. In fact, in Nebraska, the way they do it, it's a state law that requires the county and the city and the county court to collaborate together. If the majority of the individuals within one county reside in the same city, it's required by law that they cooperate, collaborate, and build together for all those great benefits that Tracy just described, and even Mark Cotter described, and I'm sure every director would describe. And given all of the efforts of the state legislature to give more money to the county, and the county's desperate attempt to get money from the city, this is our perfect chance to take the county under our wing and say, let's stop the train. We're going to start over again with you guys clearly on board as equals. And we're going to do this right, and we're going to prove to the rest of the state how you do it so that we don't have the state coming to us in a short period of time saying, hey, city, your piggy bank's full. County's dying over here. We got to figure something out because it can't keep going like this. And now we've got Big Brother telling us how to do it. This is our chance to do it and show them we can do it. We as a county have worked tremendously hard to collaborate with the county in all kinds of ways, Lincoln and Minnehaha County. This is the perfect time. This is the time to stop this project and restart the bus with Minnehaha County clearly as an equal partner.
Any other comments, questions from the council? Councilor Jameson, I'm going to reply to you on this. Number one, the city council and the city of Sioux Falls has tried to work with the county. We have reached out in multiple situations. And the most one that comes up, the most recent one, is the archive facility, where we put $1.5 million away for 3 years, waiting for the county to come through with their part of the situation or the project. That didn't happen. We have worked with them on other projects that have worked well. In this one here, I have spoken to several county commissioners too, and once again, they have not expressed a great interest in this project. This is a two-way street. The county also needs to work with us, and they have not done that. And I'll use the project known as the jail. Here we're talking about parking spaces for the county. Well, the county hasn't asked us for one parking space yet. I've been in a few of those meetings, and I have not had any communications that they want that parking space. The parking space that they were looking at was to the east of the public safety building. So I feel that we have reached out. We are open to working with the county, and when the county is ready to work with us, they will let us know. And at this point in time, they have not said that. So that would be my response to that. Any other comments, council? Okay. With that, I'm looking for a motion, please.
I'd move that we go into executive session under reviewing communications from legal counsel about proposed or pending litigation or contractual matters pursuant to South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-23.
May I have a second, please? Okay. We will move into executive session. The informational meeting will end after the executive session is closed. Thank you.